Well, on Money Monday, we love to answer your email regarding your finances. And Pat, this first one is from Mary. She says, Pat, I've heard talk about the possibility of fast inflation in the near future. If this is a growing possibility, do you think we should buy things now that we know we'll need before they go up in price?
Mary, that is a very wise suggestion. Yes, we're going to have inflation. Without question, there will be inflation. It's just a question of how soon and then how virulent it gets. Mm-hmm. But if you could figure things that would last for 5 or 10 years, and there's certain packaged items, for example, razor blades, they don't get old. Mm-hmm. If you could buy some cheaply now, good for you. If there are imported things, you may get imported stuff from Japan and China cheaper than you'll ever see them. And then just figure what it is without just stuffing your house with toilet paper and things like that. But if you can figure items that you will need, for example, some tool or some item.
Appliances. How about appliances?
Sure.
Yeah.
If you and you can get them on sale and all kinds of good stuff. Absolutely. But I mean, don't overdo it. You still need your cash. But that's a smart idea, because by all means, the prices of things will be going up. It's just a question. Certainly by September, you're going to see a marked increase in the price of goods all across the board.
This is Alan, who says, I was told when I purchased my car that I should put only premium in it, premium gas. Do I really need to do that, or can I save money by using less expensive gas?
Alan, the experts are divided on that. There's some think that if you put load test in, it'll cause your engine to ping, and it might make for costly engine repairs. There are others who are experts who say it doesn't mean a bit of difference. You just get a higher performance with it. So, you know, you can try it, but if the thing starts choking and banging and pinging, you know you've made a mistake and go back to the high test.
Okay, this is from Sandy, who says, Pat, how important is a credit score here in the United States? I'm a new immigrant and I want to avoid unnecessary interest rates, but I don't want to use credit cards to build credit. Is it possible to live in the American system without credit?
Sandy, if you're loaded with money, it's plenty possible to do it, because you just don't need any credit. You buy things for cash, and that's the way it is. But if you want to buy a large ticket item like a house, or you want to buy an automobile and you want to finance it instead of paying cash for it, the credit score is just absolutely crucial. I mean, these lenders, they go immediately to the credit score, and the only way to get credit is to build it up. So one suggestion is, you don't want to go into debt, but what you might do is get a credit card, one, at best two, and run up some charges on it, like a couple $100. And then at the end of the period that you have, grace period, before the time comes up, pay it off, and then do it again, and then pay it off, and do it. And after a year or so, they say, boy, you are a marvelous customer, because you pay off your bills. I mean, that's the way you game the system. But you certainly don't want to run a credit card balance. That is not smart.
Okay, this is Lance, who says, Pat, some people say that troubled big banks should be allowed to fail and the market should just sort itself out. Do you think it could be that simple?
No, it's not that simple. The government's got to take it over. You've got all those people in banks that have deposits, and they have loans, and they have all these various interconnections with the economy and with banks overseas. So the government just can't let them fail. But what the government can do, and has done, is stepped in and take them over and begin to sort through their liabilities. And they transfer the accounts to some other bank, and somebody's got to service the accounts. So they just don't walk away and say, okay, let it go busted, tough luck. You can't do that.
This is Steve, who says, Pat, our country's economic downturn is largely due to a lack of confidence in the system. But it seems our leaders never miss an opportunity to tell us how bleak things are. I feel worse after hearing them. Is this crisis being manipulated for political gain?
Steve, I don't want to go overboard on this one, but I honestly feel in my heart that it is being manipulated. Certainly the Democrats manipulated this thing. It was crisis, 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 crisis. And then they get this monstrous package out there without much debate, which takes care of every constituency they've had in the wings for the last 20 or 30 years. They just paid money to everybody, and they threw it out of the window. It was crazy. But that's this climate of crisis, crisis, crisis. I don't know if you watch 2020, but John Stossel had one the other day where he showed all the politicians, one after the other, saying, it's a crisis, it's a crisis, it's a crisis, it's a crisis. Well, we've had worse. We had, in the 73, 74 period, we had something that went down, then it comes back up again. And the government takes certain steps. It needs to come in and do something, but it's not near the hideous crisis they make it sound like. So is it being manipulated? In my feeling, it is. But there's some that say, oh, if they hadn't stepped in, the world would have been destroyed. Well, I don't think so.
This is from Richard, who says, I heard someone say recently that a person's not to-do list is more important than their to-do list. Do you think there's some truth in that? You've accomplished many things. Do you have a not-to-do list that keeps you from wasting time? I'd like to make the best use of my time. Any suggestions?
Well, Richard, I don't know what the not-to-do stuff. I really don't have a not-to-do list, but there's certain things that are priority, and you need to put the priority things. Well, what is it, the big thing in your life? What is it you want to accomplish, and where are you heading? And then you ought to take those things that lead to that goal and concentrate on them, and let the rest of it go by. If you worry about every little detail in your life, you will go to be a nervous wreck in the first place, but you won't get anything done. There are always, always things that come up. And it's like the urgent is the enemy of what's really important. And everybody, you've got to do it, got to do it. Well, I think, I don't know about any not-to-do list. I've never had such a thing, but I do think to sit down and when the day begins, here are the things I want to have accomplished. 1, 2, 3, and then as the day progresses, put the most important one at the top of the list, and when you get that done, check it off and go do the next one. That's the best way to handle it. What else?
This is Linda, who says, what is the difference between tithing, seed planting, first fruit offerings, and love offerings? My husband doesn't see why we should give more than a tithe.
Well, the Bible talks about tithes and offerings, and I do think an offering is a gift of love to the Lord. You appreciate what He's done for you. There's a little something over and above. The tithe is kind of like an obligation, more of a debt, and the other is a gift of love. Mm-hmm. So I think that's important, but you don't need to get all hung up on terms. The biggest thing God's looking for is our love. Do we really love Him? And do we really put Him first in our life? That's what it's all about. Well, thank you for those questions. Mm-hmm.